Medial meniscus centralization performed with meniscus transplantation. Here are our disclosures. We initially began with a matched meniscus allograft. Bone plugs are prepared, and you can see bone plugs are trimmed here in the process to create an 8 by 5 millimeter bone plug. We begin with diagnostic arthroscopy. We evaluate for absence of meniscus tissue. We then proceed with an initial centralization stitch using needle localization from a proximal anteromedial portal. A curved drill guide for a soft tissue anchor is placed, and the anchor is drilled and inserted at the junction of the posterior horn and body of the meniscus on the plateau. The implant is set. We then use a transtibial meniscus drill guide to create a transtibial pin. A flip cutter is placed to create an 8.5 millimeter socket to allow placement of the bone plug. Suture shuttle is placed. The medial portal is dilated and enlarged, and the meniscus graft is developed and introduced into the joint. This is placed and docked inside. We prefer the use of a hybrid technique using all-inside implants posteriorly to stabilize the implants. This is performed with an all-suture, all-inside implant that allows tensionability and stabilization of the meniscus to the posterior capsule. A total of 3 implants are placed in vertical mattress fashion, 2 above the meniscus and 1 below, to allow for a balanced meniscal capsular repair. You can see that after the inferior suture is placed, we are able to get a balanced repair of the meniscus and adequate reduction. At this point, the view is turned towards the medial portal, and a passport cannula is placed through the lateral viewing portal. The repair suture is retrieved and shuttled through the meniscus using a meniscus scorpion to allow for an over-under vertical mattress repair using a passing suture. This will allow for a buttress effect and backstop for the meniscus. This is then shuttled using an all-inside implant knotless technology to allow for stabilization of the meniscus to the tibial plateau and to prevent further extrusion for a second point of fixation. At this point, we create a posterior medial counterincision and standard inside-out passage and repair of the meniscus is performed using long needles and an inside-out cannula period. Mini suture tapes are used to reduce the meniscus to the capsule. These are sequentially tied on the outside to allow for stabilization of the meniscus body. A total of 6 to 8 paired sutures are used to stabilize the meniscus from the posterior horn/body junction towards the anterior horn. Sutures are usually progressed moving from posterior to anterior. Once the meniscus body has been secured, the arthrotomy is enlarged, and a point-to-point guide used to drill another transtibial pin at the anterior root location. This is over-reamed, and the anterior bone plug is shuttled down the tibia. Sutures emanating from the posterior and anterior roots are then tied over a bone bridge to allow for stable compression. Finally, the meniscus transplant is checked and confirmed, and adequate stability is noted.